let's get this show on the road.
Remember to introduce yourself.
I'll try. I don't know if I want my name on this cast, though.
Wow.
Oh,
It is so bad.
wow. Well, I mean, if that's how it's going to be.
Well, I mean, we're going to be talking about curse words, so things are going to get a little dicey.
Oh, no.
Fortunately.
My future prospects are on the line. Well, Engate kame, Mafrapo, and welcome to the Eana Mokri podcast. This is the makeup episode for the last month and a half or so. We've got 2 Na'vi posts, as well as we're going to finally talk about the last issue of Tsu'tey's Path. I'm Pamarik, and here to do that with me today is Eana,
Kalti.
Duna, Yayo.
Eh,
I never know if to call you Duna, Yayo, or Tayo.
Tayo.
Tayo works.
All right, Tayo. And we also have Willem.
Kalte.
Ansan. So, first things first, let's talk about Tsu'tey's Path, because that's sort of been on the back burner the longest. So, the final issue of Tsu'tey's Path came out a very long time ago, and it basically revolved around the final events of the Avatar film, for the most part. We got a little bit of behind the scenes. I think overall, this was probably my favorite issue, except for, like, possibly the first issue. Like, it's between the first and the last. They sort of bookended it with, like, a lot of substantial stuff. And if, like, there were episodes, we talked about this, where towards the middle of the series, I felt like we were kind of just seeing the events of the film unfold in comic form, and that was it. There wasn't really anything new or insightful.
Little dry in terms of new content.
Yeah.
No spoilers there, yeah. But what I found
So-
interesting was, if I might go ahead and start.
Yes, please.
I agree with you that I think the first and the last issues were definitely the most interesting ones. And what I found most interesting out of issue number 6 was the nightmare sequence of Tsu'tey.
They really opened with a bang.
Yeah.
there. Like,
Yeah, I'm reading it right now, and, like, I just see, like, Jake, I don't know if this is spoilers. Well, it's the opening of the comic, and it's a dream sequence. But freaking Jake is just, like, going evil, and, like, cutting off Tsu'tey's head. And, I mean, it certainly gives some perspective on how Tsu'tey probably feels during this very trying time. Jake
Absolutely.
could absolutely represent the trauma and calamity that has befallen the Omatakaya clan.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they could have eased into him trusting Jake a little more. It was just kind of like, turn the page, okay, they're good.
Though, to be fair, that was sort of the situation that the events of the film portrayed, though. Jake really messed up. Got their, effectively, from his perspective and the perspective of a lot of the Omatikaya, basically got their home destroyed. Like,
Right.
sort of, he was responsible for everything that just happened as far as they're concerned. Or at least he could have done more to, like, do something about it. He is willing to tame Doruk and like understands their mythology enough to be like, okay, this is the way that I'm going to reconcile what I have done.
Right.
And again, this is like the Doruk rider is a mythological figure in their mind. It'd be like, I don't know, like Jesus just showed up.
Yeah.
And it was like undeniably him. He was walking on water, turning water that he's walking on into wine, like everything. Like, just legit.
Oh, man.
Like definitely Jesus hits all the qualifiers. Like
Right.
that's basically the situation is. And it's also coming from somebody like Jake would only do this if he was truly like felt bad about it or wanted to right a wrong. So in that moment, like, he becomes very trustable. Because what's he gonna do? Tame Toruk just to come in and, like, be a mole and then screw them over more.
Yeah, no. I don't think that Tsu'tey feels at all that he is an enemy of the people at this point, so much as he feels that Jake is a personal enemy.
Right.
And it does a very good job of portraying Jake as, in his mind, this possible maniacal evil genius that would want to take everything from Tsu'tey. First Neytiri, first, then the role of, Olo Ektan. It almost feels like a personal attack where Jake is trying to usurp his power.
Mm-hmm.
And
right. Though, to be fair, he did not become Olo'ekdan until Tsu'tey specifically promoted him to that after he was like, I can't lead the people, you do it now.
Yeah.
Jake was more like a sort of like a war chief kind of like reconciler figure more than actually a leadership figure. Tsu'tey was very much still the leader of the Umategaya at the time.
Oh, definitely. But in terms of status, like, you could only ever hope to be Toruk Makto.
Right.
And I guess I do like that about this comic. As I'm reading through it, flipping through these pages, it does seem to kind of portray how, like, Tsu'tey kind of trusts Jake at first in like a sense of hopelessness. Like, well, if he's going to freaking take everything from me, he might as well, But it seems as the battle progresses, it really shows them bonding and like putting that whole it's nothing personnel kid it's not an attack on Tsu'tey. He truly has the interests of the Na'vi, the best intentions at heart,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if this reference will land, but I very much liken the relationship between Jake and Tsu'tey to Ash and Gary from Pokemon, where it's this, at first highly antagonistic, but eventually they go from like rivals to like respecting each other at least enough.
I'm actually watching season 1 now,
Pokemon
but
spoilers,
go ahead.
man.
I believe this spoiler is actually predating Avatar the first film, so...
And from a writer's perspective, that's really hard to do, so I do have to give props where it's due.
You mean for Pokemon or for Tsu'tey?
Why not both?
Pokemon's just some stupid kids anime. Pokemans.
Anyway, what I wanted to say about the nightmare sequence of Tsu'tey, of course you were all right with what you said, but what I personally found interesting was that all the lore we've seen so far indicates that the Na'vi are kind of more afraid of losing their connection to Eywa, meaning their twin, their neural cue, more than losing their literal head. So him dreaming that Tsu'tey beheaded him, was quite kind of surprising to me. I would have found it more logical or within the law of the universe if Jake would have cut off his twin rather than his head. But
that's a very interesting point. Yes.
I don't know if they would prioritize losing tween over actual death.
Yeah, well,
I think they can imagine the idea of living without tween as definitely a nightmare situation, but I think at this point, like, again, the destruction that befell their home was like, this is the actual death of their home. This isn't like losing their like connection with the world. This is actually sort of like a metaphorical death.
Yeah, true. But remember two scenes from the movie. First, when Jake gets captured, the guy holding him, transporting him into Kelutral, holds the knife to his twin.
Yes. Here's the thing, though. They also cornered him initially with bows and arrows and spears.
Yeah.
They're going to kill first, and as soon as they realize, okay, he's not a physical threat, we can still threaten him in some other way. Where, if he makes a sudden movement, even if we can't like kill him or he successfully runs away, we will still have like permanently disfigured him and removed his connection with the world.
For that.
There really is no like one-to-one here.
Yeah,
but like
that's a good...
it's sort of like this is the easiest measure we can take to restrain him in a way that will prevent resistance, rather than being like, we don't have a way of like killing you if you go to run, but we can definitely cripple you.
That's a very good point, definitely. But I just wanted to say, basically, that Tsu'tey's story revolved around Eywa, right? His connection to Eywa, being able to talk to Silwan and having that connection, right? He was shown as very spiritual inside that comic.
Yes.
So it would just have made more sense to me. That's just...
So, if I can interject here, I do agree with you, Anna, about the Q thing. It being it gives much more context to both the culture and it makes sense in Tsu'tey's story. And I'd have to agree with Pomerik here, partially just because you're writing for a human audience that doesn't understand these Fai Sao Tute, that don't understand, Na'vi culture. And so chopping off someone's head is a very strong visual image, though I'd say that cutting off the Q is also a strong visual image as well. So what I would have liked to see was Jake like beheading Tsu'tey and then like ripping off his Q, afterwards, and just like crank up the visceralness to the max.
Counterpoint: I don't think this comic was written for our like Tsu'tey sensibilities. I don't think that was a consideration. I honestly believe that just like metaphorically, like he's killing him. The Tsween is attached to the head. Spoiler. So if you remove the head, you're also removing the Tsween. I definitely get your point where it's like this could have been a cool opportunity to represent that the Tsween is very important to the Na'vi, and that removing this is like, a very serious matter. And I think that, yes, you're right, that would have been a cool way of representing it, but I think in this particular situation, it's already a crazy scene. Like, it doesn't necessarily make sense because it was sort of this representation of
it
feeling.
Certainly takes the imagination on a trip.
Yes. I don't think there's a real difference between the two for purposes of this metaphor.
Yeah, I'd say even if, for all we know, cutting off the Q could lead to actual death, perhaps you would not survive the trauma, even still, if that were the case, I feel like the comic artist would have chose, the beheading, because that just sells well, not sells, but it's more quickly readable, I guess, to a human audience.
The idea.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I just want to be just to be clear, I'm not like saying, oh, your idea is dumb or whatever. I'm just saying that like I don't see the difference between the two necessarily as far as communicating the idea, which was already rooted in metaphor to begin with.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when Avatar was still called Project 880, the original script said that for Tsu'tey's death scene, his twin got cut off, and that was the reason why he couldn't lead the people any longer. So initially, it was revolving around the tween, but I know that the script got changed to what it was back in the movie then. So it's not lore or canon, but I get that to us humans, on the first visual cue, it would suffice to see a head severed. I just still think it would just have added more to the universe and to the comic itself. It would have been more coherent with everything we know. So
I could have seen that. Personally, from, like, whenever I try to do something, I try to, whenever the opportunity is presented, build on the world building, remind people that you're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
it's Pandora. It's the Na'vi way of doing things, so whatever.
Speaking of the Na'vi way of doing things, the other substantial piece of that we got from the comic series as a whole, that was also shown in the bookends of issues 1 and 6, and also throughout, as we touched on, was sort of Tsu'tey's more like spiritual, like internal self, I guess, or how he relates with Eywa, specifically by means of his connection with Zilwanan spirit, and the way in which this issue ended, I feel like sort of reinforced that this was sort of the if James Cameron was involved in what the comics are going to be showing, or like what pieces of information we are going to get about the world of Avatar via these comics that we didn't have before, a lot of the focus definitely seems to be on how does Eywa like mechanically work, and a lot of time was spent in pretty much every single issue in some way, shape, or form, showing the way in which spirits remain within Eywa and how they are perceived, or like the sense that you get from their presence by means of Tsu'tey.
Right.
And so I think that basically that soul jarring that happens is one of the more substantial and important points to get from Tsu'tey's path, because that is definitely not a perspective that we got from the films. Like in the films, Jake connects with Tree of Voices and he hears a bunch of cluttered whispers, and that's it. And Neytiri goes on to elaborate that, like, okay, no, you can hear our ancestors. This is how we like connect with our past. And one could assume that if you sort of like knew what you were doing with your Q, you could like deliberately access particular people or like reach out to certain entities, as we saw Tsu'tey doing.
Right. Jake seems to have a low spirit score.
Yes, he's got a lot of low scores on his character sheet. But among them is a significant lack of experience using his Q.
Right.
Who can blame him?
We can blame him. Faisal Tsu'tey. But I'm flipping through this, and I really like that they go ahead and put the actual Na'vi language in the part where Tsu'tey is translating.
Yes,
this is good for us.
The retranslation I really did appreciate.
This is very good for us because hopefully it'll get people to realize, hey, this is an actual language. Gee, wonder if there's somewhere I can go to learn it. And now would be a good time, Pomadic, to plug something.
Join us on the learnna'vi Discord. Go to learnna'vi.org. I'm pretty sure everyone who listens to our podcast is already aware of the Na'vi language community, as we sort of chat in this alien cat language at the end of every single episode.
You never know. I still have the hope that people from outside of learnna'vi discover our podcast one day and decide to join us then after listening to it. But yeah, that translation got changed as far as I can tell from how it was said in the movie, wasn't it?
It's entirely possible that the translation was borrowed verbatim from the original script, and it's just a matter of when they were speaking it in the film they just messed up, right. Which we know for a fact happened. Like the flubs that exist in the film, the mispronunciations, the grammar, let's call them shortcuts.
Yeah,
were all
soft
errors on the actors' parts, and Cameron liked the take enough where he's like, okay, that's it.
I mean, it's clear that in the movie this scene was heavily like shortened, because firstly the Na'vi sentences are shorter than the English sentence to leave information out, but also they're kind of out of order, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yes.
Tsu'tey already translating it has not been said yet by Jake.
Yeah.
So it is clear
and
that
it's very hard.
Paul will not have been written it like this. So it might be that either what we see here is the original script, which I'm not sure if we had that actually before, or it might be that Paul just fixed things up later.
Can I ask a question real quick? That's partially related to grammar.
Totally forbidden.
I
suppose for thing the
when Jake tells Tsu'tey to translate, you tell them Toruk Makto calls to them. Toruk Makto is the subject of that sentence, right? where would you put the subjective marker? Would that be a torukil makdo or a toruk makdoil?
Forpeng siarao toruk makdo. Toruk makdo is the subject. Xiao foru to them.
Oh yeah, so you wouldn't even use the L and T endings because
No.
But if
in case you were to, I would say in case you were to use them, I would always put it behind makdo because it seems like one word for the Na'vi. Because otherwise they would say toruke makdo or makdo you.
Yeah.
Right.
Because makdo is just shortened form of makdo you. Makdo you.
Yeah. Toruk
makdo you.
Se eywa'eveng, something like that.
What's Lamset?
Ansan. Speaking of the language, we got 2 language updates since we last were discussing them. So first on August 31st of this year, so a couple months ago, we got a update from Balfromer. Included a handful of vocabulary. And then we got another post at the end of September, a couple days ago, which just included a bit of grammar information as well as a handful of insult words.
Yep.
So if we can think back to the first of those 2 posts, the August 31st post, does anyone have any thoughts on this post?
Yeah, I really like the expression or the idiom we got, which is a way to translate that someone is socially awkward. I really dig that one.
I find it. So I find that one a little interesting. So I want to know, and I know the answer, and I wish it wasn't the answer that I think it is. Wow, that was a mouthful.
I don't really know what you're saying, but carry on.
Okay. I want to know the order of operations that happened. Did stepping on tails, was that an idiom for being awkward because that was a scene in Avatar the First? Or was that manifestation in Avatar the First, like this, ha 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 ha, he's socially awkward and he's literally stepping on tails. Like, I want to know if that was a thing before the events of the first film, or because we're getting this now literally 10 years after the fact. I'm pretty sure it's the other way around. It's like, oh, Jake stepped on tails and that's something that awkward people do. It's canon now that was always like that in the language. Like,
it could also be a construction like woe, right? Woe only, canonically only came into the language after Jake because he said woe all the time.
Right.
It might be that the Na'vi saw that as the legend of Jake stepping on a tail and made it an expression.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the first time we've seen Jake leave an impression on the Na'vi language, so...
But on the other hand...
I'll accept it, but I think it would be cooler if it existed before.
Yeah,
I think
I'd like
it's
to
likely
think that...
because... if you're a species with tails, and those tails seem they can be clumsy at times, I guess. So I think that stepping on tails is something that happens more often, right? You can also sometimes bump into people.
I'm sure that Jake wasn't the first one to step on tails. So
no, in all the millions
he invented
of years of
stepping on tails.
Nobody was that clumsy.
Yeah.
Especially children.
Speaking of structures, I also really liked the Narisi construction.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Where that actually saves just so many syllables.
Yeah. And naughty si fois,
Yeah. I think we need more of those constructions. Also, recently I rewatched the movie, Figures, and I noticed just, it suddenly dawned on me how briefly the Na'vi usually speak in the movie, and I think that should also be taken as canon, basically. How many short sentences actually use. They almost never use, in practice, futa, fra, and so on. They just say a few words and it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm talking, I'm always saying
Right.
You can often say things so much shorter, and I think I'm going to try and practice that. So
interjection statements are something that our community as a whole is generally not very comfortable with. despite the bulk of the canon Na'vi that we have from the film actually being a series of quick interjections or questions.
Right, yeah. Because when, I was at Disney, they were asking, say some lines in Na'vi, and I was like, farewell futa, and, crap like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, I don't see any of this on the cards. And I was like, I guess our Na'vi is a bit more cultured than the Na'vi in the movie.
The cards they have are literally just words.
Right, yeah. It's just like random vocabulary. Like, could you imagine if somebody took Webster's and shook a few words out of that and like, congratulations, you're now an expert on human language.
The other interesting thing from that post was that we got the word la'a, which is the physical separation or distance between two things, and we also got pela'a and la'ape or la'ape, but we didn't get a way of answering that question. And Paul mentioned that in the comments in the discussion. I believe Willem, you actually brought this up.
I tried. I was wondering this because it's a bit Cameronian, of course. Like, how would Na'vi measure distance? By steps or length of trees or like days of walking or whatever.
Right.
But at the moment, it's too Cameronian to actually get something, to get like an actual proposal here.
Yeah, it's extremely Cameronian, and I just find it interesting that we learned of this without learning the way to answer it. It almost seems like, don't let us know that this exists if you don't know if you can't like fully tell the story here. And
don't fully agree with that. I still like the word la'a, but you're right that I would have liked it more if I would have known the answer.
Yeah.
I feel like he's sitting on this because it has to do with the sequels. Like, I guarantee you it's going to come up in the sequels. And possibly. He's like, I can't tell you exactly just yet how the Na'vi measure distance, but I can tell you how to ask about distance,
As everyone knows, Garibaldi is the biggest tease.
Yeah, this is like those useful language courses where you get to learn how to say in French, where's the station, but you don't know what the answer would be like, so it's completely useless.
It's like all the people who come to learn Na'vi and they learn Ngaruluf Bomsrak, and then when they get an answer that's like actually substantial, they're like, and then they deer in the headlights.
Right, yeah. Oh man. Was there another post?
I think there was another post.
So moving on to the other post, the more recent of the one that happened about a week ago. So we got a grammar update, which was basically, how do we answer the question of like X or Y, like choosing between multiple options. This was something that was not clear before. We knew definitely how to ask the inclusive version of the question. For example, would you like coffee or tea? Like, if coffee or tea is fine, yes or no. We knew that, but we were like, how would we ask, would you like coffee or would you like tea?
Right.
And we have the solution to that. It's uses fu, which is, we already know is for or. However, if you have multiple options with fu and you lead with fu on the first noun, then that indicates that I am listing options. And I think that's an elegant solution.
I think it's elegant, but the more I think of it, the more confused I become.
Yeah, so it leaves some questions, definitely.
Exactly.
So elaborate on those confusions.
So, Eana, go.
Well, first thing I'm unsure about, how would you use that with verbs? Like, one of the initial questions was like, how would you translate, should I stay or should I go? And we haven't had an official example that explains that. Stay and go are verbs, right? So we just have examples with nouns, fi'ud and sa'ud. Like, would I use foi there?
So actually, that I asked, and it was answered by Paul. I'm now scrolling to the comment. Let me see.
I didn't catch up on those, I think.
Right, so I asked, can you use this with verbs? And he said, for example, neunga fuyivom funivek seems kosher to him. So I don't see why the full construction shouldn't be used for entire clauses. Your example is fine.
Like f't'e. as a
yeah.
conjunction. Okay, awesome.
Well, yes, but so there's other questions that I have. I'm not sure if you have an answer there, but I'm confused with the distinction between fu fu and ft'e fuke, or ft'e fu, because I would say if ft'e fuke exists, then ft'e fu should also exist, because fuke is just fuke. So
well, if you use ft'e, the second ft'e acts as the or, so you don't need fu. But it's weird that because you can say ft'e fuke, right? So the other version has that fu inside of it. But if you say whether or, you just use the second ft'e, weirdly enough.
Yeah, so basically made a list now of 4 types of or that we now have. We have the normal or, A or B, which is just fu.
Right.
We have the or, like the options that we now newly got, fu. We got ft'e, which means whether A or B doesn't really matter. And you have ft'e fuke. And my brain is perpetually confused now about ft'e having a somewhat different meaning from fu, but not really in this case. Plus, I'm still confused.
Ft'e fuke is, should I do this choice or not that choice?
Yeah,
it's
doesn't
specifically
exactly
just negating that
present
choice.
2 different things. It's just, should I do this or should I not do this?
Right.
It's not like, should I do this or should I do that?
ft'e fuke. I don't know if he's here or not.
The options are pol fitsinget dog or pol fitsinget ke dog.
Right, so let me explain what I'm confused about here. Because, so we are using ft'e fuke for an option question. Basically the one we now called fu for, right? So this is the same type of question.
Not necessarily. So so here's an example where you'd use fu would be Gemunwel tinkta fu pol fitsinget dog, fu pol satsinget dog.
So
yes. You're basically saying tsatsang and fitsang are not necessarily opposites. Like if it's like, oh, I don't know if he's at Paul's house or James's house. Like he could be at either one of those two, or he could also be at John's house. But like John's house is not necessarily opposite of James's house or Paul's house.
But for that, I would use ft'e and not fu. Because as I understood it, fu questions are a matter of choice. Like you have 2 options to choose from.
Yes, that is how I would interpret it.
Okay,
too.
so yes, if the response is if you're specifically seeking a response, like I expect somebody to answer, like, do you want to go to Paul's house or Jim's house or John's house? Then that would be fu. But I feel like if you're like, if there's sort of this like wondering where it could be none of those, where you're not necessarily saying pick of these options, it's like, is he at Jim's house or is he at Paul's house? Like I like you're not saying there's a choice to make here. You're not asserting a choice on your listener.
But yeah, sure, but it's different.
That's the yes/no question.
I don't know whether he is here or he's there. And asking, is he here or is he there? You know, one is more like a statement, and the other is more like a directed question at the listener.
So I think that the first question is here. What if I want to say I don't know whether he is here? And I think that like we have already had that.
That's definitely ft'e fuke.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the only choices are he is here or not here.
Yes. So basically, that means you use ft'e with this. Right, so ft'e fuke, but then So what I'm confused about is that it seems illogical to me to have ft'e fuke, and then if you want to give 2 actual choices instead of just yes and no, you switch to fu.
Because it's not a binary choice.
Yeah, because
it's no longer binary.
Yeah, and none of the options you have is yes or no, but the things offered to you.
So like I don't know if I should eat an apple or not. I don't know if I should eat an apple or an orange. The opposite of eating an apple is not eating something else. It's not eating an apple.
Right.
And this is so. I don't know whether or not I should eat an apple. That's ft'e fuke definitively. But then like I don't know if I should eat an apple or an orange, I have to pick between these two because those are the only ones that are available to me. That's fu, because it's like, okay, I actually, that I'd say that's AFD because you're sort of doing this like hypothetical thing. But you're saying, hey, would you specifically, I am offering you these two choices, like an apple or an orange. You can't say like ice cream or whatever, because no, that's not an option. I'm saying
yes.
your options are now apple or orange.
Yeah.
Can't tell me what to do, Pomeric. It is a good question, though. I can definitely see the confusion, and I feel like the best way to get a definitive answer on this is to leave a comment for Cariu Paul.
I mean, I already did with some of my questions.
Oh, you did?
I don't want to overload him. No, I think for me the best way to get this resolved in my brain would be to just see 10 example sentences of all the usages.
Sure.
So, Macario, goed ting aiwaru fit.
Please elaborate. Give us more examples.
In the meantime, we can discuss the other half of the latest Na'vi post, which was a bunch of insult words.
Mm-hmm.
Do we still need a copy of the why Willem doesn't like insults in Na'vi, or have we already heard this at some point?
Well, we had a version of this discussion, but how do you has this post changed any of your feelings?
Not really, except I like the Telupil one. But for the rest, it's like, no, I don't like insults in Na'vi. But I'll stop repeating it every time you get insults.
For me,
every time we get insults, that's not very often.
Yeah.
We don't get words very often, let alone insults.
It's been a long time since the last time we've got an insult from out of Kayapol, so this post made me quite happy, to be honest. It just deepened the love I have for the Na'vi. Because in my books, it's realistic that every culture has some way or form to express negative feelings one could have about another being, and I'm all for it.
Have you ever on this podcast expressed your distaste for insults, Willem?
Yes.
I think yes.
I will answer for him. Yes. I was actually, I believe,
one of the first episodes.
We were discussing this a while ago.
Phone vet, I think it was.
Yeah, this came up in your member interview.
Oh, yes.
When you were asking about what your favorite word is.
Oh, yeah.
Your least favorite word is Vonvet.
Yes. Well,
and that's how we got that discussion. So yes, for the record, Willem doesn't like doesn't like mean words.
I'll have to go back and listen to that episode.
Yeah. Sema Willem, is Vonvet still your least favorite word, or has that changed since the last post?
No, it's still Von Vet, because I don't like the bad smelling metaphor, basically.
Okay.
Although the ones that we had here are also quite... I mean, the ones that...
Which one is it? The latest one that we got?
The ones that we have here sound at least a little bit cuter. I don't know. They are still bad. Kalweyaveng. It could actually be a cool word, but then the meaning is annoying.
Well, I think it's cool that we got a word that is considered to be even worse as an as far as insults go than Vonvet.
Is that
which is
Kurkung?
Kurkung Sarane.
Yeah, I feel like that is like, and it's just such a vivid image as well.
Mm-hmm.
It translates literally to rotten Q, putrid Q.
That is very strong.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I have thoughts about this post. Okay, so
don't have words.
So I will make a compliment sandwich, because that's the best way to provide feedback. Okay, so starting with the good. I love the etymology here.
Mm-hmm.
I like that he didn't just come up with new root words that are just like, oh, and this is a bad word in Na'vi language.
Yeah.
These are all direct etymology, things that make sense, and the way that they're presented, like, okay, these all describe very different, like, gradations of behavior that you would insult somebody for, and varying, like, levels from, like, the childish to, like, the really vulgar. And I like the continued use of the strong associations that the Na'vi has between internal matters like the spirit, soul, the Q, so on and so forth, and putrid smells or like bad smells as being this negative factor, and a very a very consistent through line for like Na'vi insults now is like they have strong negative associations with bad smells, and they tie these things in with like deeply personal matters and the ways that like somebody like relates with the world of Pandora to describe someone who's truly awful. Like this, like the innate part of you is this thing that we revile.
Right.
I like the consistency there.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my here's the middle of the feedback sandwich where the negativity is, and I promise I will say something positive at the end. So first of all, I've recently gone through like the list of words that have been like submitted to LEP, and there's a lot of stuff in the backlog that is so much more valuable to the way that I use the language, that it's like whenever we get something that isn't that, I can't help but feel like priorities, Paul. Like
I know that feeling.
what are your priorities here? Like we have questions about like how to communicate these very fundamental concepts, and you're providing like really childish insults or like ways to like vent at people. It's like, okay,
oh, look
cool.
at this. Now I have another reason to hate on insults. I mean, I didn't know and I didn't think about this yet.
Maybe
Sorry,
the
go
stuff
ahead.
from Valley of Mo'ara needed some insults to reply to very nasty customers and visitors.
My headcanon is this was a fun conversation that James Cameron and Claudio Paul had on set.
Possible.
Or they were venting about world affairs and just wanted some fun words to describe situations. I mean, we the last time that we got like some choice curse words was venting about real world events via Paul.
Actually, yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if this was sort of just like Paul's way of like venting at world situations. Okay, so that's my like first piece of like, okay, whatever. Secondly, I personally don't really have a good reason to use these words. I like to believe I have a fairly good relationship with the people in the Na'vi language community. I don't have any reason to call anybody any of these words.
Not within the community, yeah.
Yeah, within the community. And here's and then part
sign.
2 of that, I'm also over the age of 14, and I don't feel the need to insult people in a language that they don't understand just because I get shits and giggles over this. Like I'm not like gonna be like, oh, look at this onfuing too. But like no. Like, and I can't. Here's the thing. Again, I'm over the age of 14. I can imagine a time in my younger life where I've been like, "Oh, what's the Na'vi word for like some loser or whatever?" Oh, onfuing tu. Oh, what a onfuing tu. And like get some sort of sick pleasure out of that. But like, I don't use the language around people who don't know it because it's a dick thing to do.
Yeah, no.
And like if I'm going to insult somebody, I'm going to use it in a language that they understand. So I'm not like hiding behind some passive aggressive thing and then dragging the Na'vi language and its community into my personal affairs.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
like how it reflects so poorly on the community to be like, I'm going to insult you, and I'm using the Na'vi language to do so. So
right, that's a given.
That person has not thought about Avatar in like the last 10 years. They don't know anything about the Avatar community, and then their first interaction with it is some butt munch using the Na'vi language to insult them.
Yes.
It's like,
I mean,
that's just like I sort of like PSA. Don't do this shit. Like, don't be this person.
Pamarik, I think we all have the same opinion about this, so you can maybe
I
go on
think
to
that
the third
anybody
part of
that
the
isn't
sandwich.
14 or younger feels the
But
same way.
I appreciate having more vocabulary to use inside my head in certain situations, so I don't have to say them out loud or anything, which I wouldn't do too. But sometimes at work, when there's a customer who's very impolite, I mean, that's just a humane thing to do, I guess, to like in your head venting about them for a second or whatever, so you just can go on with your business, right?
Right.
So having
And
having a broadened
get that.
vocabulary for that is, I find that interesting because I love using the language, even if only inside my head. And also,
Right,
I
that's,
think
that's a possible use.
And also, I
There's
think this is
also
very good for creative use, especially in fanfic and whatnot, or roleplay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think also within our own community, we can talk to each other about some other person who is being an awful person, and now we have some vocabulary to do that. Again, I'm fine, but like that's the thing is this doesn't necessarily align with my particular usage of the language, and I can't count the number of times when we've had people come to the community and like the first thing they want to know is like, how do you say fuck and not be? And it's like, okay, well, I just lost all respect for you, and my motivation to actually teach you these things has like diminished greatly. Because like the kind of person that's like going to come into the language and then the first thing they want to know is like, oh, what are the edgy curse words? It's like, okay, whatever.
And I'm
dude.
sure, Anna, you can relate with this if you've ever had somebody come to you like, teach me how to draw, and they're like, okay. You're like, okay. And they're like, teach me how to draw boobs, or, like a really nice ass or something.
Yeah, of course, definitely. But I think curiosity is curiosity at the end of the day. So if that keeps, like, that initial interest, how to say fuck in Na'vi, if that keeps them learning and sticking with the language, so I don't care at the end of the day.
And I would agree with you for purposes of people who are like, oh, that's really interesting, because I know if somebody asked me how do you say fuck in not the language, I'd say, well, actually, that's a very interesting question, because we have to then analyze what the word fuck even means in the first place.
Yeah.
Right.
And then that launches into a tangent. But if someone's first and last interaction is, how do I say hi, where's the bathroom, and fuck you?
Yeah, sure.
And then they're like, okay, at that point, why are you learning Na'vi? Like, it doesn't matter that you're like saying, if like this post accounts for like 90% of somebody's Na'vi knowledge, like that's very disappointing to me, because it's like, why would you use the Na'vi language to insult somebody?
Mm-hmm.
Just make up your own words, and in your head that means such and such like awful thing, and then you can boo-hoo-hoo-hoo about that after you've like said choice words about your science teacher or whatever.
I definitely understand that frustration. Though, shifting gears a little bit, I think that the reason that this post was made, the only possible explanation that I can come up for it is that these words are going to be used in the sequels. And
I've said that about pretty much every like word that we've gotten since the sequels. We know that the sequels were being worked on, is like, I wonder how this word could relate to the sequels, and like I can imagine these showing up in the sequels, and that's we're totally fine.
But we're getting expansion. We're going to see more clans, right? And we also have more younger characters, especially like teenage characters, or like, pubescent characters. And I don't know, but I think all of us have been there when we were like, oh, what if I said son of a bitch, and because we're so immature, we use that in times where it doesn't exactly fit, and then some freaking adult slaps us on the back of the head like, what's your fucking language? But
yeah, at the end of the day, I'm the fun police, and I'm like, I don't like it when people are being immature, so I have these thoughts about the thing. But to close off my feedback sandwich with a positive note again, I do appreciate, like, as Eana said, these do flesh out the language and make it feel more authentic, because every language ever has had words to describe people that are bad people, or that like are doing things that you want to exert that social pressure on to not do. And so TLDR,
so I feel,
don't humiliate us.
Right. I feel like in response to that middle part of the sandwich, compliment sandwich that consisted of pure cyanide. No. I feel like in next episode or something like that, we should discuss some of the submissions to the LEP and what we like about them.
Yes. I'd be all on board with that.
Yeah, good proposal. So, I mean, what else to say?
We still need a word for boring. Please.
Yeah.
True.
So my little headcanon for boring. I hope that there are multiple words for boring to
Yes.
describe the different flavors of boring.
Oh, that would be
because
awesome.
Yes.
there is bored as in I don't have something to occupy me right now. There's bored as like I don't have any particular motivation to do something in particular, like the absence of motivation versus the lack of interest. Like there's a different flavors of boring, and I really hope that the Na'vi language distinguishes between them, because
A third
there's
possible
already
one.
I love it when Na'vi distinguishes between things like being very explicit about the difference between like mental and physical health, or like other sort of binaries like that, where it's like we don't think about this as we lump this in English into like one thing, but there's like, oh, the Na'vi expresses this in multiple ways, and I like it whenever there's non-direct parallels between Na'vi and English, and I really hope that boring is one of those words that gets spliced.
A third possible definition for that could be like, this action no longer brings any fun to me.
Yes, that's another thing. Like I am no longer interested in this. Like again, there's so many different ways to spin board. One of my least favorite things to like see or read is like, here is a creative work I did because I was bored or something. Like it's like, no, you did this because this brings you joy, and the things that you were doing weren't particularly interesting you at the moment. Like.
Right.
Because I was bored is like this weird shorthand to justify having a creative outlet, and that like always hurts me to read.
Though I feel like that kind of, and we should probably save this for the next episode, but I feel like that kind of boredom is vital to people that want to be in any kind of creative field, because when you are no longer stimulated from the external, you have more time to focus on the internal. And this is very like Taoist or Buddhist, but I feel like the Na'vi would have a lot of philosophies that relate, that kind of parallel Eastern philosophy a little bit, just because we've already seen some of that with
there's definitely been influences.
Yeah, the connections to Ewa energy being, everything energy is given and taken, stuff like that.
I just hope that for boring, the official translation won't end up being El Tur Titenkesi. That would be
the
worst thing to happen.
Yeah. Actually, I would like that. I'm basically using that already for random things.
Yeah. No.
It works as a good circumlocution right now.
So then it's like, I am bored. It's like, Weri El Tuhahau. And this thing is boring. It's like Fe'ul El Tuti Heikahau.
Right.
I don't see a problem with
those
it.
Those are interesting. So.
You don't like them?
Not in love with them.
I would love.
I mean,
viewers
they'll work, I guess, but I really hope for other examples like we were talking about.
Anyhow. Give me some of them good stative verbs.
Right. Is there a certain mobile game that we should be discussing?
God, this episode's already packed. We've been going for an hour now.
We could just put that into the next episode.
We really don't have anything that's vital to talk about this episode, other than there's an early access beta for Pandora Rising available in a handful of countries. New Zealand, I think, is one of them, and other like Southeast Asia territories. But like, other than that, there's really not too much to report on that's vital to have this episode. Like, I've been waiting to have these Na'vi post discussions since 2 months ago. So
yeah, but you can sign up now for the newsletter.
Yeah, we actually talked about that on the podcast where we talked about the existence of it.
And that you will get notified if it's available in your country?
Yes.
Okay.
More on this story as it develops.
Anyway, we really need to get to our traditional Na'vi language practice.
Yes.
So, we're going to move on to that segment. As always, we are learners who are practicing. We are not perfect. We will make mistakes. This is for our benefit and for yours, but mostly for our own. That said, the word of the cast is... Somebody please decide.
Kalweyaveng.
Danga. Fine. The word of the cast is kalweyaveng, or son of a bitch. Piveng o. Piveng o. I always get the ko and o's backwards in piveng o.
Srane. Wpierwa futa li'wa tranten swelu tolu kung talung kung paya u alu kung
Strane lupum letsim. Ute fiposte me kelu kea pum letsim alahe.
Srane.
Strane tsale uri sapum to pum alu Zeneo fuivel.
Strane
Teika
lulaya
pele u kanya sle kesmo versale u.
Well, srum si vi aware. Where?
Srang si vi angaru. Wow. Sapum to pum alu angang. To pum alu nget.
Njet, strane.
Strane pesiketting lu.
Hit or li'u alu pangang?
Angang.
Kangang.
Angang. Strane. Saip li'u lu sionu. Ute kolanue neo fita engal fita engti slivatsu leNa'vi.
Oeket slivam where eltu lukung.
Kunga eltu kepjak.
Sran.
Fele ul alu njet slatsu ayawuli kefjak.
Strane. Ute pumalu angang slivatsu ayowang akung. Sla pum letsim alu kung pefiafko si fko zat si var.
Kemuman. Swelu o baum karjuru.
Strane kariu polil zat solar lì'fya alu tsafaheo avon vet ftu kunga ioang zau. Ute solamoe sla pet dare tsa li'u Saleul dare meleu aham.
Aha.
Root eywa'eveng.
Leul alu gung dare meleu aham alu engang se nget.
Stran. Spilwell lì'fya.
Släpp ja. Peu sal tsun slivatsu. Peu akelu ayut sa leu tsun slivatsu.
Fraso.
Angang.
Spilwelfta sali ud alukung skol sun sivar frakker. Taluna sun sivar sali ud fwa slivatsu tsngan se eywa'eveng se eywa'eveng a dolerku.
I have house rak.
Strane sle
Tam.
kaum zirne denkjemum. Sle spilwelfta liud alu engeng sun sivar ne au tenker pert teri eywa'eveng a terku. Dolerku ulte kehe Joang a terku dolerku. Ulte nget lufpi fwa gra eywa'eveng dolerku. Slam strak.
Stranet,
Feleu.
Slam will sat ni.
Fra u anget lu go lu kung. Und fra u eneng lu go kung lu. Sla u alu kung. Gesene livu nget fu eneng.
Strane.
Slolam.
Spilwelfta.
Feleu alu engeng lu mip. Lì'fya.
Srang kehe.
Stranke.
Katsun rivolun or rivun. Feleu.
Zola uhu renu ai inanfia. Yeah.
Kine sisitam.
Feleuri perallur.
Ngat. Kolan. Kung.
Faheu iwanga dolerku. Angangiri.
Eneng.
Strane.
Neng.
Sngan af
Sran.
die onve.
Yeah, I can't find it anywhere. You're just gonna have to spell it out later.
Eneng.
Oh ja, luer netan. Tse.
Tam.
Strake lu fmaun or ngari. Strake ngari lufmaun. Ngari.
Smaun.
Ngari.
Ni.
Terry, strak.
Strane.
Pengaiwer.
Janturi wea ginam olak.
Miaula.
Ute poti will vere strane poti will vereung nifkar
Será que é Zosleru Nilsan?
strane po zosleru nilsan niwin
Kosman.
strane kosman niwot
Multe.
Potsun differensrak?
strane sun po dividan nik ong strunghu ketsun for tivul
Till exempel,
fol fimmel well
Slolam.
sla ngatsale uke pot mele u alu dividan se tivul leikueru jajair Koro.
Strake pot ewe santul, sig?
Kehe, pot enga san tiveran ute strane potsun tiveran. Ketsun po tivol.
Stran. Slolam. Set. Posos lifu ni win.
Strane, zosleru niwin, zosleru netzan. Strane. Armin oe sla tsuntivam.
Taluna Armin.
Tsunpam.
Strane.
Armin, strane.
Taluna nga zene frakem CV.
Frakem zene oe frakem CV povbi sla what I hemme apolkin CV oe.
Tuxlan.
Weru ka u. Sranten weru nao fwa po zosleru nutsan se kelu poru fkarat.
Seasonal san. Zou tranten frato kefjak?
Strane. Ke hola hau oe nilsan nifkar sla sat eleri sanerul niteng. Kara pol zoslivuseng di tog kau ke hola hau nilsan kau eat.
Nga ke hola hau kefjak?
Strane ke hola hau nilsan. Hola hau ni eat goro ni yol.
Nga kevin no nga kin ngal kin futa haho mit an lutsran or lulet sranten it an
Strane.
Til hus a house ranten. Tsalsungai saul ketare silenti wea.
Se, silpeis tsne nga tse vun ivahau nelsane ul, ni win.
Strane, te nifkar alu fikar alu terram se on Meseram se onam holahau oe niltsan ia. Taluna newot bo lurtok seri.
Tsal weti lirtok sekoli.
Tam. Wedi nite.
Lukusman for Storm. Safmani.
Multe. Strane.
Multe.
Ha loop engaru fmaun alahe.
Sran, te hetzer se savin. Tolok hetzeril se savinil. Tolok Louisiana ti. Ta mea kintr ulte piset zolau zilmau se ha Savina zerang naskang nit.
Tam belun solop mefo.
Hit o niteng root
Srad belun mefo solop.
Talun awas swalsip
Nefrakar. Tam.
Ferfen Fiverfen Swayati
Answer.
or Swayahu Swayati
Suojati, sådär.
PS Wayal Louisiana ti to kefia.
Srane
Tam.
Swaya Calcusi me Louisiana ulte zizikaralu holidays Pefia people filu
Oze?
Yeah, I've Oza tr approach look lerok in ul ulte so I fever fan wetty
Kosman.
Snowsia oza Zranten frato kefia. Alu Halloween.
strane swaya zizikr
Strake Bilngal Safia.
Multe away.
Sunu veru frato sisikr a wew. Ulte
Christmas.
nafra ngatsun stiveri mike ftolia wel tsai stotia mi ai sisikr ha sene o pifelt s an sisikr a wew sick.
Siskrueu.
Aning ijsraak.
Strane. Dingen.
Siskruel. Tam.
Zisukar zerau sikive ni win.
Milte.
Kes bawal futa Tsu'tey a sunu poru ziskar weo gaukar ke olarip I herwit
Strakelu a herwe or strakelu herwe eywa'eveng me?
Spilue. Taluna na'vi lu tsali'u kifjak.
Silsana se spil.
Ulti spilue ta tsolea aiwel aungal really eywa'evenge a wind u itit eywa'evenge a tsaru herwe.
Na like Airam me?
Aram.
Med North Pole.
Strane. Neo well fi'ut alu no futa holp ai rela rusik lu Christmas rela rusik.
Okay.
Christmas.
Unuteran tok oza alu.
Strane.
Deze non sa.
Fi'u lu Star Wars ur. Iowa keen fi'u.
Strane ziskar wel me sexually skotoruk makto gowo sko Santa Claus. I ställer i eywa'eveng ding.
Rut eke.
Baile ut i Stonewell fitter. Ketsunslu.
Matt James Cameron. Rut Behem seringa.
Rut ting eweru fit stelle.
Kehe. Ma pamerik. Ne aufhäng apelt essan. Neo aile ut da mip a lesarsi kefjak. Oder set nga tut essan neo fit ut. Ketslam.
Fi utranten frato.
Nga hek na au. Nga toa.
Strade herek. Na alnum. Kezimpelt Zene we hiva hamne u.
Slolam.
Siltsana krr.
Svelut o frappo haun hiva haune u. Belohe.
Altuwe holum.
Rut et au.
Iowa L2 kung.
Ngal staunset spul Mokri Pamerike ket ook fitsengit. Da vraag.
Ne lausene Willem für podcast or hasse CV.
Set vraag.
Kelu ik dan we set.
Damn.
Ngalu hektan set.
So I've just heard that we are stopping this podcast. So let's do that.
God, please stop.
Yes, please stop. Okay, so let me try and do the Pamerik ritual. Hayalovai.
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 I think we did it.
I think that
San
counts.
Mafrapo.
Wow.